Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sister.
Welcome to our next episode in Obstetrics. I'm Nansa Fiona, a midwifery clinical instructor at MASH. So I once welcome you to MASH Skills Center. So we are going to look at our episode, the next one, and this time around, our emphasis, we are going to concentrate on what we call a fetal skull. So when we look at the fetal skull, it is simply that delicate part of the fetus that protects. It is that delicate part or the delicate bone of the fetus that protects the brain. So when you look at the fetal skull, it has regions, and it is mainly divided into 3 regions. So it has what we call the vault, it has the face. So when we talk about the face, it ranges from these orbital ridges up to the chin. Then it also has what we call the base. So when you look at the face and the base, they all have what we call fused bones. But in obstetrics, our major emphasis is going to dwell more on the vault. So we are going to look at the vault, and on the vault, we are going to look at the bones, we shall look at the sutures, we shall look at the fontanelles, and then we shall also look at the diameters. So allow me to take you through the bones of the vault or the bones of the fetal skull. So we have the frontal bones, and they are 2 in number, until when at the age of 80 years, that's when they fuse and it becomes 1 bone. We have the 2 parietal bones, then we have the 1 occipital bone, and then we have the 2 temporal bones. So those are the bones of the fetal skull. Then we go to our sutures. What we mean by sutures, these are simply membranous spaces where 2 or more bones meet. So in this case, we earlier talked about our 2 frontal bones. I hope you can see a line that passes in between them. This is what we call a suture. And this suture is what we call the frontal suture. Then we also have the parietal bone and the frontal bone. So in between them, we have another line. Remember, these lines, we have called them sutures, which we have defined as the membranous spaces. So this space, or this membranous space, is what we call the coronal suture. So this coronal suture separates the parietal bone from the frontal bone. Even you can see it on this other side. Then we have our 2 parietal bones. In between them, still there is a membranous space, and this membranous space is what we call the sagittal suture. So this sagittal suture separates the 2 parietal bones. Then we come down here. Still we are seeing a space or a suture that passes, that separates the 2 parietal bones from the 1 occipital bone. And this is what we call the lambdoidal suture. So those are the sutures of obstetrical importance. Remember, we mentioned about the temporal bone. So still there is a space, or there is this suture that separates the parietal bone from the temporal bone, and this is what we call the squamous suture. So those are the sutures of the fetal skull. That one takes us to the fontanelles of the fetal skull. So we mainly have 2 fontanelles of the fetal skull. Remember, fontanelles by definition, these are membranous spaces where sutures do meet. Remember, we have looked at our sutures. So we can see that there is a suture coming here. There is also another suture coming here. Even on this other side, there is a suture. There is also a suture coming from behind. So where they meet, this is what we call a fontanelle. And this fontanelle is what we call the anterior fontanelle. Or the other name, it is called the brygma. So as you see it, by shape, it is diamond shaped, and in babies, it closes at 18 months. Then, remember I've told you there are 2 fontanelles. we have another fontanelle, which is what we call the posterior fontanelle, or if we don't call it the posterior fontanelle, the other name given to it is the lambda. So when you look at it, there is this sagittal suture coming. Then we also have this lambdoidal suture. So where they meet, they form a triangular shape, and this is the fontanelle we call the posterior fontanelle, and it closes at 6 weeks. So those are the fontanelles of obstetrical importance. Then that one takes us to the diameters of the fetal skull. So we mainly have 8 diameters of the fetal skull, but they are divided into 2. We have the transverse diameters, and then we have the longitudinal diameters. So when it comes to the transverse diameters, there are 2. We have the bitemporal and then the biparietal. So let's see where they take their measurements from. So when it comes to the biparietal diameter, it is measured from the 2 parietal eminences. When we talk about these parietal eminences, they are centers of ossification onto the fetal skull, and it measures 9.5 centimeters. Then we have the bitemporal, which is also still a transverse diameter. It is taken, remember we said this is our colonal suture. So this transverse this bitemporal diameter is measured between the 2 farthest ends of the colonal suture, and it measures 8.2 centimeters. So those are the transverse diameters. We also have the longitudinal diameters of the fetal skull. So when it comes to the longitudinal diameters of the fetal skull, we have 6 of them. We have those ones which run from in front backwards, and we also have those ones which run from the back to the front, right? So we are saying, let's begin with those ones which run from the back to the front. So these ones, we have the sub-occipito-brygmatic. So when you hear the word sub, that means we are below the occiput. But remember, in the occiput, there is this area of ossification, which we call the occipito-protuberance. So when we are taking these diameters, when you hear that sub-occipito-brygmatic, so that means sub means under. Then occipito, we are on the occipital bone, but particularly where? At the occipito-protuberance. So the sub-occipito-brygmatic is measured below the occipito-protuberance up to the anterior fontanelle, or call it the brygma, and it measures 9.5 centimeters. Then we also have the sub-occipito-frontal. So still we are saying sub. That means we are below the occipito-protuberance, and we are saying now sub-occipito-frontal. So that means we have moved up to the frontal bone. So it is measured below the occipito-protuberance up to the center of the frontal bone, and it measures 10.5 centimeters. Then the other diameter that we have, it is occipito-frontal. So that means we no longer have the sub on it. It is occipito-frontal. We are now direction on the occipito-protuberance up to the roof of the nose, or up to the ridge of the nose, and it measures 11.5 centimeters. Then the other diameters that we have are those ones that run from front to the back. So these ones which run from the front to the back, we have one submental-brygmatic. Don't forget, when you hear the word sub, that means it is under. And in this time round, we have mental. That means it is the denominator. We can call it the mentum or the chin. So how do we measure this diameter? It is measured from the point where the chin meets with the neck up to the brygma, or which we call the anterior fontanelle, and it measures 9.5 centimeters. Then we have submental vertical That means onto our fetal skull, we have that area which we call the vertex. So still we are under the chin, or call it the mentum. So it is measured from the area where the chin meets with the neck up to the vertex, and it measures 11.5 centimeters. Then we have the other diameter, which is now mental vertical. So you are hearing it is now mental vertical. That means we have moved from the sub-region. We have gone onto the mentum, or call it the chin. So it is measured from the chin up to the highest point of the vertex, and it measures 13.5 centimeters. And among all those diameters, that is the largest diameter of the fetal skull. Thank you. I think it has done good to you. We meet next time. Bye-bye.